We've made a beautiful banner for the pet park, a site that we are building from scratch on Prestige Theme. And now I'm going to be making banner number 2. And I'm only going to be having 2 banners on this particular website. And again, the pet park is all about selling pet goods and accessories. And I'm going to take a little different approach with this banner. The first one was kind of a salesy one. It was at $30 off when you spend at least $100. So I'm actually going to be making the second banner very product centric, right? I want to focus on one particular product, and this is something you can do for your store, or you could do something else. I'm just going to do it to show you that it is a possible type of banner, right? The purpose of building these stores from scratch is that I'm not going to be running traffic onto them. It's to show you a wide variety of skill sets and also how you can think about web design in a very engaging way. And I would say in general, I do recommend to have a varied type of messaging across your banners, right? You just don't want every single banner to be some sort of sale, or else that gets very, very boring, right? You want to have something kind of dynamic, and you can look to your favorite brands for inspiration. So in order to keep the dimensions consistent from the first banner, what I'm going to do is just go ahead, because I've already saved this as a PSD, right? I'm just going to go ahead and delete all of the layers. So you can just save a PSD file and call it something. And then next time you alter it, obviously, you kind of have a copy to work with. So I'm just going to delete all of the layers except the background layer. And then this background layer, I'm going to, get rid of that green. I don't know if I'm going to make this banner a particular color just yet. And this is the easiest way to ensure that all of your creations are the same dimension. Alrighty, so I've actually gone ahead and already picked out a image. It's actually a product photo that AliExpress has provided me. And whenever you can use an AliExpress asset, it is always phenomenal, because then you don't have to worry about any sort of inconsistency between a stock photo versus a photo of a product you're selling. So this is going to be the product that I'm going to be focusing this banner on. And I'm just going to go ahead and make the adjustments I need to make for this to look good. And oftentimes, AliExpress agents will include some really good creatives, and even when there's really dirty text on the image, or it's just not exactly as professional as we like it, but it's still very high definition, make sure you watch the lesson on how I transform AliExpress product images into very, very engaging photos that look very professional. With the help of Photoshop, you can really do anything in the world of images these days. So here we are. It's a cat kind of pet feeder, and that's what we're going to be focusing on. And I'm going to go ahead and make some adjustments on the curves of this image for it to stand out a little bit more. What we have to do in order to adjust the curves is add in a curve layer, which is that yin yang kind of sign. And then what curves are is basically it allows you to adjust what's going on in the image in areas where it's bright and also areas where it's dark, right? So you just play around with this quite literal curve until you find something that works really well. And I already kind of like the lighting on this image. I'm just going to make some minor adjustments for this thing to pop out even more, because I'm kind of a perfectionist when it comes to designing my sites, right? I think that's really what differentiates me from a lot of the other dropshippers out there, is my sites look very professional, and you can see that subtle transformation. The cat clearly stands out just a little bit more than before. And I actually really like the fur on this cat, and I'm going to see if I can actually do some Photoshop magic that's going to really emphasize the color of this orange fur on this cat as well. So we're going to be adjusting the curves up here and turning RGB. I'm going to go ahead and use that drag down and actually go into red, right? So now everything with some sort of red tint to it, or some sort of red element to it, is going to be affected by the curve settings now. And obviously the cat's fur is orange, which is a variant of red in a way, where at least it does have red tints, right? So we can see that we can just go ahead and move this dial and kind of play with it. And we want to make sure it looks more engaging but not too artificial. So here it already looks better, but it's a little too red, right? It's a little too warm. So I'm going to bring down the warmth in the brightest areas of the images, and I'm going to also bring down the warmth in kind of the darker areas of the images, so then it's really contained to just this cat rather than the entire canvas. And my goal again is just for this to pop off a little bit more than normal, and for it to kind of communicate a warmer, whimsical feel, which I think we've successfully accomplished. And it's this subtle difference that could actually make a pretty big impact in the long course of things. Just think about thousands of visitors or even millions of visitors if you're running a budget my size that come onto a particular site. And even if you move the dial a little bit, you can still make a big impact. So I want to visualize what this thing is going to look like on Prestige Theme. And I'm going to move this a little bit up because we're going to put that text in that bottom left corner over there like we did last time. And it's always good to just kind of plug and chug and see how progress is made. So I'm going to export this thing as a PNG. And of course, this banner is the same dimensions as the previous one, 2000 by 800 pixels, slightly bigger than your banners for district theme. And now that I've done that, I'm going to go ahead and just plug this thing in and see how it's going to look, right? Make sure everything kind of feels right. And so excited. Alrighty, so that's how it looks right now. Obviously there isn't text on it, so let's add in some text, and we're going to be doing it natively within the theme this time, which is a little bit different than what I did with district theme. So I'm going to use the subheading, keep your pets hydrated. And again, this is a different approach, right? We don't actually have to Photoshop the text onto here. We just got to keep that bottom left side open when we design these banners. And I actually really like Prestige Theme's kind of native interface, right? That's one of my favorite parts about this theme. And I'm going to use the button text as learn more, okay? You can choose to do shop now or learn more. Learn more is kind of a softer ask. So it's just a good thing to kind of test, and it shouldn't make a massive difference. But for this one, I'm just going to give you that option so you know that this is something I do on some of my sites, especially because this product is kind of a wow gimmicky product, right? So you can sell wow gimmicky products on a branded niche dropshipping store. It's just executed in a lot more professional way, all right? And I'm going to call this thing the Pet Fountain. And we're going to go ahead and make sure that the button is linked to this particular product. And I haven't done anything with the product page, so if it looks a little ugly, don't worry about that. Make sure you actually watch the product page lesson. And this is perfect. That's exactly what it's going to link to. And now when they click on this banner, they go directly into that product. But with Prestige Theme, this is not mobile optimized. It is not looking good. So we're going to go back to Photoshop and make this thing mobile optimized. And we've already done this before for the first banner. So I'm just going to go ahead and steal the dimensions from this banner. And if we just change it to pixels, it's 544 by 800 pixels. All right. So that's what we're going to be using from now on in order to make this mobile optimized. Alrighty, so we have that information now, and I'm just going to go ahead and make this canvas size the same canvas size as the previous image, right? 544 pixels by 800 pixels, and I'm going to go ahead and save this as a PSD just so I have it in my back pocket before I make any changes to it. Perfect. So now let's change that canvas size. Alrighty. And we're just going to mimic the exact same as the other one. Perfect. So obviously we've changed the canvas size, and now we have to do some sort of resizing in order for this to look better. And throughout this resizing process, I'm going to be referencing the preview of the other mobile banner just for a good reference, because we want to make sure that things are consistent. Perfect. So let me just make sure that everything is aligned properly, and don't worry about it. I'm moving this image a little bit higher because we can kind of visualize where the text is going to appear on Prestige Theme. And I'm going to get rid of that transparent slot later on. So don't worry about the fact that the floor is kind of, elevated and not extended. So let me just make sure that it's absolutely going to be great based on the reference point I have of the previous banner. Alrighty, so this is looking pretty awesome, and I just want to make sure I'm taking my time. Alrighty, perfect. So now this image has been adjusted to the right size. It's been oriented in the right way. So what I have to do is now just get rid of this transparent background on the bottom, right? Because the floor just doesn't extend. And this is a very, very easy way to do it. I already taught you how to do it with content aware scale, but we're going to be doing it in a different way that also works stupendously. So we're going to right click the layer that we want to adjust, and we're going to basically rasterize this layer right over there, just so it goes from a smart object to rasterization, which just means we can edit on top of it very easily, right? So we're going to use that rectangular marquee tool, and this is going to be very similar to content aware scale, except just a little bit different. I'm going to select a sliver of the floor and also the area I want to fill, and right click fill, and then make sure that it's selected in content aware. So if you see that contents area, make sure it's content aware, not like a color or anything like that, because we want this thing to basically use Photoshop's algorithm and detect what should it look like. And of course we have some problems, right? But these problems are really easy to fix. The easiest thing to do first is just to select the area that's problematic, and we're going to go ahead and use the content aware fill again and see if that fixes the problem. And nope, it doesn't fix the problem, so we're going to be doing something a little bit different. We're going to be using the stamp tool, and I've selected it right over there. It literally looks like a stamp. And what this does is if you hold down Alt, you can basically select the area that you want to clone. And then as you're painting, it'll clone that area over, right? So how do you paint in patterns rather than just painting a solid color? This is the tool that lets you do that. It literally clones over a pattern from your image so that you can just paint over another area like it's a paintbrush, right? So it's a pretty powerful tool, and it's great when you're trying to extend the background. This looks kind of weird still, so I'm just gonna, now that I've painted over it with the stamp tool, press Ctrl J, and what that does is basically makes that part of it a separate layer. And what I'm gonna do is go ahead and just give this a Gaussian blur to kind of blur the inconsistencies, and this should basically take care of the image. Let me just pick the right amount of pixels, so that's gonna look a little bit better. And I'm moving that layer underneath the layer that we created in order to bring out the orange fur, just so that's also contained by the effect, so you can see the before and after. And what we're gonna do is basically group the layer with the other ones underneath that red curve layer so that the effects are all translated over. And I'm going to go ahead and press group, and there you go. Now the effect kind of carries over, and this image is looking pretty spiffy, if I have to say so myself. Now what we're going to do is add in a vignette, right, which is basically the dark surrounding areas of this image to give it a little bit more emphasis. So I'm just going to go ahead and add a new layer on top, right? So there's that layer right over there, and we're going to use this gradient tool and just play around with this thing until we get the emphasis that we really want. And the point of a vignette, right, and I've explained this with the previous lesson on the previous banner, is basically to draw someone's attention in a very, very purposeful way, right? So obviously, the subject of this picture is going to be the product, right? It's that little automatic feeder and also the cat involved in this image, right? So I just want to make sure that I'm playing around with this setting until it just gets the most emphasis, and I'm also not blurring out anything or kind of encroaching on any details of the particular image. And let me just make sure that everything is done the right way. Okay, well, I think this looks pretty awesome, right? I think this gives the perfect amount of emphasis. So I'm gonna go ahead and export this as a PNG, and we're gonna be plugging it into Prestige theme. So I'm just gonna call this one the Cat Fountain Mobile Banner, so we know exactly what it is. And we're going to upload it onto Prestige theme in the area where you're supposed to upload the mobile banner. And let's see this bad boy in action. Alrighty, so it's plugged in and it is looking absolutely great. So we saw how this translated from a Photoshop creation to actually going onto the pet park, okay? And I think this looks great. So much better than the automatic mobile optimization that Prestige theme was trying to do for us. It's much longer, the image is more engaging, it's exactly centered in the right way. And let's just look at the desktop views, perfect. And then we'll compare it to the mobile views as well, just to make sure that everything flows well. And I think this is a absolutely great banner. You can see that vignette and the blurs that we did on the bottom really covers up the fact that we use any photoshopping at all. And I think it really brings the right amount of emphasis to the subject of this banner, which is going to be that cat and also that product. So as long as this banner is linked the right way, we are done with this one. It's great to move on to the next lesson in designing the site.